I'm sure you've heard the term reamping a million times by now, but do you actually know what it means and how it can actually help you get better tones in your home studio? In this video, I'll teach you everything you need to know about reamping, from what it is, to why you might want to reamp in the first place, to what gear you need, how to route your signal, and how to do reamping properly. By the way, this video is brought to you in collaboration with Palmer, who among other things sent me this very useful reamplification/DI box we're going to use later in the video. And if you need some sort of signal splitter or a proper DI box or a reamplification box, I'm going to put a link in the description. Using that link won't cost you anything extra, but I earn a small commission through every purchase, and that helps me to put food on my family's table, which would be greatly appreciated. Thanks. To get us started, we need to cover some basics first. Reamping is taking a recorded DI track, so a completely unaffected guitar and bass sound, and playing it back through an amp, modeler, or plugin. This way we are separating the performance, so playing guitar or bass, and dialing in the sounds into two different processes. Can that just record and be done with it? Yes, you absolutely can, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're like me and you record a lot at your home studio, there are many things that affect how we perceive the sound. For example, here's my semi-hollow guitar that you've seen on the channel a lot over the years, and while it sounds amazing when recorded, it's also very loud acoustically. And even if I use headphones, I can still hear the acoustic sound of this guitar while playing, and that affects how I perceive the recorded sound. In short, what I'm hearing while I'm recording isn't the tone that actually gets recorded. And that is where reamping can really help. By recording the DI sounds of your guitar, you make sure that you will have maximum flexibility when mixing your tracks, because you will be able to quickly readjust the tones of your guitars based on what else is happening in the track. One might even say that reamping allows you to focus on the performance and worry about the tones later, which is a true time saver for a second guesser like me, because I cannot tell you how many sessions have gotten completely stuck because I just kept tweaking the tones and never actually focused on recording my best take. Reamping allows me to focus on just getting the best takes I can and worry about the tones later. And no, I'm not saying you should be recording with a bad tone, just that it doesn't have to be 100% there when you're recording. Also, one of my favorite things I can do with reamping is to tweak my guitar sounds while the rest of the track is playing and dial in a sound that fits the rest of the production perfectly. I'll demonstrate this more later in the video. Reamping also allows you to do cool collaborations. So let's say your friend has an amazing sounding, maybe even a unique sounding amp. You can send your DI tracks and have those reamped through that unique amp. And I'm pretty sure you can come up with other examples as well. Recording DI tracks has also allowed me to reuse a lot of songs I've written for my demos and reuse them in other videos through different pieces of gear. For example, for my Helix video I put out a while ago, I was able to use a baritone guitar DI tracks from a song I wrote several years ago and see how it sounded through the modeler. Now that you're familiar with all the cool things you can do with reamping, let's talk about recording our DI sounds next. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask anyone to record with a DI sound. I would even say that it's crucial that you get to record with a tone you like and that suits the music that you're recording. The better the sound, the more inspired you'll be to record your best take. The easiest way to get inspiring guitar tones while technically just tracking your DI tracks is to use some sort of amp simulation plugin. If you're a Logic Pro user like I am, there's a bunch of amplifiers available in Logic Pro already. And if you want to just try out something else, or you're not a Logic Pro user, there's a link in the description to a nice list of free amp simulations you can try out. And that list contains a bunch of different amplifiers for different genres as well. And what's really cool about that kind of setup is that when you're tracking, you get to hear like a proper amp simulation sound, but what actually gets recorded is just the DI sound of your guitar. So it's a win-win situation maybe? I don't know, something like that. If you're recording through a modeler, you're going to need at least a 2-channel DI box like the Palmer Pan 04, for example, to split the signal after your guitar. So basically plug in your guitar into the DI box, run one output straight into your audio interface to capture the DI sound of the guitar, and then use the second output to go into your modeler's input and record the modeler sounds the way you normally do. And if you're using a real amp to record, it's pretty much the same setup as with the modelers, but instead of going into a modeler, you just go into your guitar amp and the other signal goes into your audio interface to capture the DI sound, and then you just record your amplifier the way you usually do. I should also mention that if you're using some sort of modeler, chances are that it supports kind of internal reamping, so to speak, and you only have to run a USB cable from your device into your computer, and instructions on how to do that can be found in the manuals for the set modelers. However, rest of this tutorial covers the reamping in a more traditional way, if you will, and that should apply both to modeler users and tube amp users alike. Alright, let's get started, and I'm going to assume you have some sort of audio interface that has few outputs on it as well. And what we're going to do is to run a signal from the back of the audio interface into the amp solution of your choice. And something that we need to take into account is that when we're using one of the outputs on our audio interfaces, this comes out as line level signal, which is way more stronger, if you will, than the instrument signal that our amplifiers and modelers kind of expect. So we need to convert this line level signal into instrument level signal. Now you can use just a DI box for that, but for this specific video I actually asked Palmer to send me one of these kind of Reamp boxes, and while it's technically still a DI box, it has this cool little volume control or level control that we can use to kind of fine-tune the amount of signal we want to send to our amplifier or modeler, for example. And again, links to all of these in the description. But back to reamping, we go from our interface's output into a DI/Reamp box, and from there we go back to your audio interface as you would normally record your amp/modeler. If you're using an audio interface like this Scarlett 282, for example, I would recommend running your DI signal through one of the outputs into your Reamp/DI box. From there you would go to your amp solution, and from there back to the inputs of your audio interface. And then you could use the headphone out for monitoring. And if you want to dive more into reamping with 2-channel interfaces like this one, I found a super helpful Reddit thread that I'm going to link in the description as well. Lo and behold, my guitar rig is complete. I'm only using the Boss IR2, which is both amp and a cabinet in one thing. And I'm running from my audio interface's output number 3 into the Palmer Reamp box. And from there I go straight into the IR2. And from there I go straight into the input 1 on my audio interface. The song we're taking a look at here is my kind of John Mayer-ish style jam thing, and here's how the rhythm chords DI track sounds. So this is just DI sound. I'm gonna pan it in the middle. So yeah, it's a DI sound of an electric guitar, and what we're going to do next is to send this, and we're gonna select a mono output, because we're not outputting this in stereo. We're gonna send it to output number 3, which then goes out of the audio interface into this Reamp box, and from there it goes into the Boss, and then Boss goes back to channel 1 that we are going to record here. So first of all, we've set this channel to output number 3. And something that I've done already is create the 3 tracks we're going to record on. And as you can see, rhythm chords that we're going to record on is set on input number 1, where the signal from the Boss goes. And now that everything is kind of ready for recording, I can hit play. I can actually tweak the sounds on the pedal while the whole track plays. We can even unmute all of these. And yeah, this is one of the coolest things about reamping. I'm boosting some of the signal on the Reamp box. Maybe even a little bit more gain. Let's give it another listen. Yeah, like that. There's a bit more hair on it as well. And when we're ready, we can hit record. And there you go. I hope this gave you an idea of what kind of things you can do with reamping, and also just how much fun it is once you get all the inputs and outputs and stuff like that. I know it's quite a lot to digest if you're completely new to this, but I hope I was also able to demonstrate that learning this is worth it, because I'm able to tweak and kind of live tweak the tracks while it's recording. And not only you'll be able to reuse your DI tracks for different purposes or for different sounds, but you'll be able to create cool things where you would hit record and maybe tweak something on your pedals, for example, that gets then recorded. And again, some new creative possibilities that would be kind of boring to do with an automation in your DAW, for example. I hope you found this lesson useful and it gave you some ideas and inspiration to work on your tracks. Maybe try reamping for some creative things and stuff like that. And obviously, if you have any questions, be sure to ask those in the comment section down below, and ways to support what I do in the description as well. But at this point, I remind you to subscribe, like all the YouTube things, and thanks for watching. I shall see you next time.